All right, so this is onboarding best practices, and I picked a Kung Fu theme because I've been off of work for a little bit, so can everyone hear me? Oh, sorry, all right. So I've been binging on Kung Fu movies, so this is my little tribute to the Shaw Brothers. I'm a coordinator of the interactive multimedia program at Sheridan College. It's not currently running because of the strike, but that's where it is. And I'm also a UX designer. So feel free to ask questions during. And I'm going to have to go through a little bit faster because I planned for 40 minutes and I was told I only have 20. All right, user expectations. Users come to your site to onboard with happy expectations. They're not there because they're being forced to. So you want to make it a pleasant experience. And one of the things that a lot of times we have to think about is we're not going to have really experienced users coming to our onboarding. So where does this start? Usually someone will download an app, someone will hear something word of mouth, have to buy tickets for the Guns N' Roses concert across the street. Anything of those can happen, but they're not going to be necessarily masters of onboarding, creating accounts, and so on. So we're going to have to guide them through that whole process. So what I like always to do is think about microcopy. And this is the stuff that people don't really think about, but it actually makes a big difference in the onboarding process. And it all begins with this simple term, logins. Okay? So a lot of times people get stymied by really simple things. So, log in versus login. And what'll happen is one is the verb, one is the noun. And then it's a question of people start processing this inside their head. And you always have to think about how you're presenting and your labels. The other thing is you don't want to have this logins. Okay?
Well done.
Well done. Okay. So the other thing to think about is is it login versus registration? Is it sign in versus sign up? And all of the sort of problems that can evolve from out of that. So this is a quick example. This is Evernote from about 6 to 8 months ago. So they had sign in and sign up. And I did this a little as a quick test with a group of people. And about half the people had already Evernote accounts, the other half did not. And what was actually happening is the people that already had Evernote accounts were trying to sign up again, not realizing it. And one of the things is that the confusion was in the fact that you have sign up, sign in, sign up, sign in, and the labels were actually part of the problem. Also, a big problem is when people save their email and password into the browser. Even on a sign-up page, that stuff gets translated into the browser, and then people are like, oh, my information's already there, clicking on the big green button, realizing that they created a mistake because Evernote will say, hey, you've already have an account under this email, and then you start going and you start changing your email, or sorry, password, and a lot of other sort of issues ensue. So this is Evernote now, so they changed it to sign up and with the login. And how many people have used Axure Share? No? A few people? All right. So this is the old one, where they put the sign in, login right next to each other. And one of the, I don't know if you can see it from where you're sitting, but this is a really interesting thing. They have login, putting your email, putting your password, and then it says, keep me signed in. And so this is a whole thing where, you've got this double thing going, so if I signed in, or am I signing up? Are you guys supposed to be signed in with the login? And all these different labels actually cause confusion in users. And it's a question of when will the abandonment happen, and how are you going to get them through the process? So far, so good? All right. So this is the new version of Axure. So again, but they still have that whole problem where you have login, sign up, and then keep me signed in as part of their sign-in or login screen. And again, when I put this in front of users, a lot of users will say, hey, I'm logging in, but wait, I want it to be kept sign in, and they actually change and toggle the tab to the sign up because of the way the labels and how your brain processes these labels. All right. So here are just some things to kind of think about. Avoid usernames. How many people have like, dot something, last name, dot something, and then some sort of string of numbers at the end? Most people don't want to be like Andrew 2112 unless you're like a Rush fan or something. And so this is why when we do onboarding, we try to limit it to email address and people's phone. Okay, these are pretty much unique. Nobody's going to have the same email address. Nobody's going to have the same mobile phone number. And these are actually better than actually getting users to create usernames. The other thing is, in your forms, don't label username, but you're actually asking for their email, because then what you end up having is users know that think that it's the username, so then they'll start doing some variant of their like first name, last name, when it's really their email address. And then always give people the option of third-party logins like Facebook, Google, and so on. All right, so this is where the fun part. You got to think about logical asks. And this is a common thing that happens with e-commerce. So how many people have like gone through an entire process of putting something into the shopping cart, they get to the end and they can't put in their Canadian address? All right? Or you can only do it, so you put in your street address, you put in your city, then you can't put in Ontario, so you skip that, and then you try to go put in the postal code, but it's in the zip code format, so it's not accepting number or letters in there. And it's not until you actually change the country that the form will reload, put in the appropriate province and postal code fields. So a lot of times you're going to start wanting to think about reordering that whole process and seeing if you can actually get the country code or country to come up somehow first in the ask. So then you can actually keep the flow of putting in the address and so on. And you also want to avoid surprises for users, like asking weird questions in the middle of the process. So this could be something like, hey, you've put something into your shopping cart. Oh, by the way, do you like the color blue? And it's like, what does that have to do with the whole onboarding process? And a lot of times what you'll end up happening is you have security protocols or security questions somehow get mixed up in the whole jumble of things in there. Okay. Any questions? Yes, no? Yes?
I don't feel like I have a best practice for login versus signing. You said all the different ways that could be all jumbled up. What's the best practice?
Best practice is the log in, 2 words, as the label. And then when you're asking the user to actually do it, it's log in, single word. So this is when we go back to here. So this is what you want them to do. This is the doing. And that's sort of how you want to break it up. I had this long argument with my wife who studied English grammar and everything else, so I kept going, oh, just log in. And she's like, is it 2 words or 1 word? I said, oh, it's always a 1 word. And she's like, no, that's a noun. So the label should always be the verb, log in is the noun, and so on. Does that answer your question? The other problem is like sign in and sign up. Again, like, are you asking them to create an account or have you created accounts? And a lot of these times, these things get conflated. So that's why you always jump to log in versus sign up, and so on. Yes, no? Sorry? Okay. It's semantics, and that's part of the hard part. I was going to bring a stat sheet, but I didn't think anyone would want to look at a spreadsheet of like people interpreting login versus login, but log in, 2 words, best practice. Okay, 3rd party. Okay, so like again, avoid surprises. And these are things like when you're asking things in a logical order, sometimes you may have to break those up just so that the way your onboarding works, you can get that to avoid the user from having to rethink or redo certain aspects of it. So the other is forgot password. How many people use forgot password on a regular basis? Okay, how many people use forgot password as part of their designing or methodology when they create any sort of onboarding? Like you have it built in, all right? When you're doing it, are you asking the user, what are you giving the user, like a new password, or are you giving them a hint? Confirmation email? They're logging as their email, yes. Okay, but when they do a forget password, are you telling them to recreate a password, or are you just giving them a hint to what they think their password is? It's a total wipe? All starts all over again? Okay. So one of the things that I try to do when I do UX design is I try to get companies to go to retrieve passwords. And it's better than doing a retrieve over reset. The problem is people then, if you reset their password, now they're going to have a different password that they may have on your site, and then they have to have another password on another site, which then may cause them to log into your site with the previous password, or they remember the password afterwards.
What about security risks? Like, let's say someone can't log into their, well, would just retrieving the password not change it? Because what is that account?
Well, there's other methodologies you can put on top, and usually before you actually say like, hey, do you really want to reset your password? What we try to do is for the reset, we say like, can you give me some password hints? So after like, the second or third attempt, you can go, here's this word that you gave us. What if that was a hint towards your password? So it may be something like, my fourth grade high school, or my fourth grade math teacher, or something like that. And that might be actually a better way than having to have the user go through the entire process of making a new password. What I found with myself is that I actually do a forgot password, and then by the time I get the email to reset my password, I remembered the old password, and then I can't log in because I asked for that request. And by doing a password hint, it could be simple as like, your fourth grade math teacher, your first dog's name or cat's name, and so on. And then you can also do a series of challenge questions that help the user remember their old password without having to do the whole reset. And some people are like, no, reset. But are you doing a reset because of the security, or are you doing?
I'm just wondering, like, whether, like, in cases where, like, someone, I'm not a website, by the way, but I'm wondering in cases like where someone's password is stolen, like maybe you said it's preferred.
But that's something that you should let the user decide. Like, do you want to reset? Do you want to retrieve it? Usually, like, in banking and other financial situations, the banks will usually say, hey, you have to do the whole process, reset your password, get a new password. But, like, if you're logging into your kids' the account to order them lunch, I very much doubt that's going to get hacked on a regular basis. By the way, my kids love grilled cheese on Thursdays, so if that has any hacker value. But what they do is they simply go, all right, here's some challenge questions. Oh, and remember the password. Can go in and order, lunch. Yes?
It's risk management, right?
There is risk management, but ordering, picking my kids' lunch, does that really require me to create a new password, or should I just be able to retrieve my password? If you go to the Toronto Public Library and you forget your password, it becomes your first, the last 4 digits of your home phone number as a challenge question. So there are, ways around it. I don't expect the Bank of Montreal to let me retrieve my password if I've forgotten it or my PIN for logging in. But, again, each situation is different. Are the credit cards being kept on the back end? But if it's just simply like logging into a website just so you can access content, why would you have them create new passwords every time they forget? Yes, no?
So I'm of the mind that passwords should be throwawayable, you should be cycling them anyway.
Right.
Yes, still all those users have, and I have an opportunity to teach my users how to do it.
Right, but every user base is going to be different. Like, if I look at my parents. My parents are now in their 70s. Do I really need them? Does the Hydro really need password need to be reset if you forget it?
Because really, how many passwords are they going to have to log into various websites?
Yeah,
They may
like
have
how many
hundreds.
passwords? There's people trying to create like password, like 1Password and stuff like that. But that's just creating more. Like that's just another keeper. What's that?
It's a bit of a raffle.
Yeah. So. You do have to, like you said, there's a risk management to it, but at the same time, you have to look at when would the user actually use this product, how often, what kind of information is being stored on it. If you have a website, half of your information is already on there. Other things like if they've tried to log in a few times, give them the option to see their password. Simply let them see it. The other is warn them if cap locks is on. Very basic programming parts of UX for passwords. And the whole idea is try to prevent password variance. How many people simply do like when they get a notification to change the password, they'll go like XYZ123, and then the next time it comes along, it's like XYZ456. All right, like these are common patterns that people do, and if you can cut down on password variance, then you have people being able to get in faster into the sites and so on. This is from Microsoft. It's like update your password, enter one below. It should have 6 characters long, make it strong. Like most people do not understand strong password versus weak password as well. And then if you do a generated one, it has weird characters in it that no one's going to remember. And then they're going to copy and paste it anyway into a document somewhere, either on their computer or put it into Evernote. So if the more complicated you make things, the more people think save them, and the more people save them, the more likely people will find them. What's that?
Post-it notes on
Post-it
the
notes. Like if someone broke into my parents' house, there's a notebook next to my parents' computer filled with all their passwords. So, how secure is that? And then you get into these weird things like, your new password must contain letters, digits, special characters, a plot, a protagonist with good character development, and a twist and a happy ending. But I keep asking my parents, what's the password? And so, it's just the cat's name. Okay, fine. The other thing is to remove the CAPTCHA from any sort of password retrieval or account creation. Usually what happens is there's about a 38% failure rate on the first attempt to use the CAPTCHA, and then the failure rate escalates. So by the 4th time, there's a 90% failure rate for each time that the user is presented with more and more CAPTCHA. So here's just a quick, reason why not to use it. Because even robots want pizza. And then all you're doing is by putting all these roadblocks up, you're just losing conversions. So the idea is that the more conversions you lose, the less of your user base. there's about a 10% chance that if someone forgets their password and can't log in, they're not going to come back ever. So, just to give you an example, I lost my wife lost her password to Overstock, which is a good thing, because there's not all the weird furniture coming into our house now, but she tried to retrieve her password twice, and then after that gave up. The other thing is, during the onboarding, do progressive disclosure. So this is from Netflix. So they have choose your plan, see the plans, pick a plan, continue, and then it says create an account, and again, use your email and create a password to watch your Netflix. Then you get to do your paperwork. And this is a big thing that I found that people should be doing is put the date when the 30-day trial expires before people put in their credit card information. Also what they do is they'll say like, hey, 3 days beforehand, we're going to remind you that your subscription is going to renew, and so on. The only thing is, they say it's a 4-step process when you sign up, but it's like step 1 of 3. This is step 1 of 3, step 2 of 3, step 2 of 3, step 3 of 3, so they're kind of playing fast and loose with the numbers. And the other part to do is don't have users rush completion. So have them be able to come back to a dashboard, add information as they please. So Dropbox used to do this, where you could get an extra 250 megs of storage. What are you going to do with all that storage? But if you did a couple of tasks, you got more storage, but you didn't have to do it all at once. And then the whole idea is to create a flow. So you're going to want to do a journey map for your users onboarding, whatever process that is going to involve the type of information you're going to grab from them. So the flow should go back to the logic of the asks that you're going to do for the user. Then you have to acknowledge the user through the process. And then, the gentleman who was here said confirmations. Confirmation emails are great, but you have to also think about where those confirmation emails are going to be asked for. On mobile, confirmation emails are a little bit more clunky. On the desktop, they're easier to do. And one of the things you want to do is avoid what's called last click analytics. So when you do onboarding, someone may start it on mobile, finish it on desktop, or vice versa. And then when you're doing a review of your onboarding, someone will say, well, look, 90% of our onboarding is done on desktop when it really started on mobile. So you want to look at where the actual user started and where they ended the whole process. And from a accessibility standpoint, it's designed for one, extend to the many. So when I design stuff now, I think about my 76-year-old dad. Can he sign up for this product? Can he sign up for this service? And then I actually will use him as a test user. And if there's lots of cursing and so on, I know I haven't done my job well. And then you want to just design with good data. So, do A/B testing. Again, your user group may be completely different. So, are you going to use the sign up versus sign in, log in, and so on. And that's it. Questions? No questions? All right. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know, they're supposed to be somewhat relevant and somewhat random. I try to get like when what's that? I don't know. It was like I was watching kung fu movies and I thought that's a good slide. What's that?
Good theme.
Right.
Stick with it.
Stick with it? All right.
When you post them, can you tell us which movies are on your watch list?
Yeah, I actually have all the movies. So.
Cool.
All right, no other questions? No? All right, well, thanks. Like if you want, I can have I wasn't sure how like deep to go with this, but if you want, I can give you analytics on word semantics, labels, what are user roadblocks and so on. But, and if you want, I can give you access to all that stuff through my Twitter, or you can talk to me afterwards. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it your student?
Well, usually, like a meetup is a great place, but the whole idea is you want to find out who your user base is and experiment with that. And this is the thing that people don't do. People say like, oh, this is for everybody. And that's usually what your client will probably say, where you build for quote unquote everybody, but not everybody is your user base. If your client, if you're doing a group project and the client says, you ask who your user base is and they say everybody, usually I have to realistically narrow that down. Yep. Yeah, but those are things that you want to find out, and you test on those people as much as you can. So you can sign up for a service like user tester or usertesting.com. You can sign up for that service. You post your prototype, your posting interface. They'll send it out to people who match your demographic. You come back and you get like a click report, you get an error report, and if you want, you can pay extra and you can actually get their talk or live talk when they're doing the walkthrough. I do most of my user testing at Starbucks, so I'll just go into Starbucks. No, usually there's someone from your demographic at Starbucks, and you simply go, I will buy you coffee if you walk through this website. Or here's a gift card, walk through the website, and it works about 95% of the time because people are like, A, free coffee, B, free coffee, and then they're willing to give you all sorts of feedback. Plus that once they get jazzed on the caffeine, they'll give you like, you have some, they talk faster, they click faster, and you gotta like, give you as much, and they start, like sometimes you can't leave, they'll just like, hey, fix this, and then so on. But like I said, I can give you some other ones. There's a Look Back is another one for cell phones that actually uses the front-facing FaceTime camera. So you can use that to actually see what people are doing on the phone while you're doing your user testing and so on. Yes?
Hey, I have a question for that login flow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on the Google's just enter your email and then it goes to either login or register page?
So like when you go to the Google email?
Yeah, when you sign into Google, it just like enter your email and then it redirects you whether you have an account or not. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that the fact that most people know that they have a Gmail
Well,
account.
okay, using that UI as an example. So if I was to build a site and then you could enter your email and then it redirects you as appropriate whether it was created or not.
Usually that's most what like Tumblr tries to do. Like Tumblr will say like, hey, the minute you put in your email, it already kind of like is pre-rolling your email through their system to see if you've actually have one or not. I find it sometimes odd because I have 2 emails for Google, and when you do that, you sometimes end up going to the wrong account because you kind of like pre-rolled you and so on. But it's a nicer, cleaner method. It just may be off-putting also like you're being asked to sign up for something where that's really what you want to do. Any other questions? All right. Like I said, thanks. And like I said, if you want, you can ask me questions on Twitter. I can send you like stats and stuff, but stats are kind of boring sometimes. All right, thanks.